Coming up today, the death toll from the Nepal earthquake tops 2,500 as doctors and volunteer medical staff work to treat the injured at local hospitals and makeshift clinics. President Park Geun-hye wraps up her four-nation trip to South America by taking in a fashion show and meeting Korean residents in Sao Paulo. Plus, China's efforts to expand its influence in the South China Sea take the front seat of discussions in Malaysia ahead of this year's Association of Southeast Asian Nations Summit. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Monday, April 27th, here in Seoul. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this morning is the response to the major humanitarian disaster in Nepal. The latest death toll for Saturday's earthquake has now surpassed 2,500 people, with a great many more injured. On top of this, the area has been hit with powerful aftershocks, almost as destructive as the first earthquake. The UN says almost 1 million children are in urgent need of aid. Shin Se-min starts us off.
A powerful earthquake aftershock hit Nepal just a day after it was rattled by its worst quake in more than 80 years. Though the 6.7 magnitude aftershock was weaker than the 7.8 magnitude quake that had hit the day before, it was still enough to surprise the already traumatized area residents who were struggling to cope with the trail of destruction left by the first quake. The disaster struck central Nepal, less than 80 kilometers northwest of the capital Kathmandu, just before noon on Saturday. The tremors also reached India, killing at least 56, Tibet and Bangladesh. The quake also triggered an avalanche on Mount Everest, where the climbing season had just kicked off, leaving at least 17 hikers dead. The scale of devastation in the Himalayan nation is immense, and the desperate search for survivors is ongoing. Sections of the capital Kathmandu have been flattened, historic temples and landmarks have been destroyed, and hospitals are overwhelmed. Rescuers are having to dig for survivors buried under the rubble as families search for loved ones. Scores of people camped outside on Saturday night, either because they had no place to sleep or because they were afraid that aftershocks would destroy their homes. World leaders and international charities have been quick to offer aid. Korea's foreign ministry said Sunday that it is sending $1 million in humanitarian aid, and the Korean Red Cross has promised relief funds and emergency kits as it prepares to dispatch a number of emergency medical workers to the country. Pledges of aid have also come from India, China, Pakistan, the U.S., Britain, and European Union countries. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye wrapped up her 11-day four-nation trip to South America over the weekend. Before her departure from Sao Paulo, she met with members of the Korean community in the Brazilian city and attended a special fashion show. The president and her delegation are now back in Seoul, landing around half an hour ago. Kwon So-ah reports.
On the last day of her South America trip, President Park Geun-hye met with around 200 Korean immigrants in Sao Paulo, an economic hub in Brazil, the seventh largest economy in the world. More than 50,000 Koreans call the city home, making it the largest Korean community in Brazil.
브라질에서 가장 성공적인 커뮤니티로 평가를 받으면서 최근에는 차세대 동포들이 경제계, 법조계, 의료계 등 주류 사회로 활발하게 진출하고 있다고 들었습니다.
President Park briefed the community on the outcome of her summit with her counterpart Dilma Rousseff the day before. She told them dozens of MOUs have been signed, and she encouraged them to take advantage of the potential opportunities.
동포 사회는 고국의 글로벌 전진 기지가 되어야 하고 고국은 동포사회 발전을 든든하게 뒷받침하는 상생의 파트너가 되어야 한다고 생각합니다.
President Park also had a very meaningful encounter with a woman in her 70s who had met the president and her father, the late President Park Geun-hye, 40 years ago in Seoul. At the time, President Park was serving as acting First Lady following her mother's assassination. The last event President Park attended before her departure for Korea was a fashion show infused with K-pop, underscoring the significance of the fashion industry in Sao Paulo, where 7 out of 10 Korean residents work in the business. The performances by K-pop stars drew local fan club representatives to the scene too, enhancing President Park Geun-hye's efforts to engage in cultural diplomacy on her tour. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
The Philippines is calling on other Southeast Asian countries to take a stand against China's land reclamation in the disputed waters of the South China Sea. Speaking at a meeting of ASEAN foreign ministers in Malaysia on Sunday, Philippine Foreign Secretary Albert de Rosario said that if China's construction of artificial islands on reefs claimed by other countries is allowed to be completed, then Beijing will impose its claim over more than 85% of the sea. The Malaysian minister struck a slightly softer tone, urging China to discuss its plans with ASEAN nations, as he noted China was one of ASEAN's most important trading partners. China continues to defend the reclamation, saying it's Chinese territory and the structures are for public service use only and to support Chinese fishermen. And North Korea wants to be partners with the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or as it's more commonly known, ASEAN. A Malaysian foreign ministry official says North Korea, along with Norway, Ecuador and Mongolia, have formally requested a partnership with the 10-member group ahead of the 26th ASEAN summit that kicks off in Malaysia on this Monday. The official said the group needs to decide whether the countries are suitable partners and into which category they would be included, as the organisation does have different ways of categorising its partners. ASEAN has a so-called dialogue partnership with South Korea, the US, Japan and China, some of the group's biggest economic partners. North Korea may have more uranium enrichment facilities than was previously known. Speaking to Voice of America on Sunday, the former Special Advisor for Non-Proliferation and Arms Control at the US State Department, Robert Einhorn, said the regime may have secret facilities aside from its main Yongbyon facility. He did not elaborate on why he believes that, how many there are, or for the length of time they've been in operation, however. Victor Cha, the Korea chair of the Center for Strategic and International Studies, has said that if such facilities do exist, North Korea could boost its nuclear stockpile to around 40 warheads by the end of this year. Just last week, nuclear experts in China warned that Pyongyang could already have 20 nuclear warheads. The United States and Japan will issue a joint statement on their strengthened partnership following a bilateral summit scheduled to take place in Washington on Tuesday. According to the Tokyo-based daily Asahi Shimbun on Sunday, the statement will likely center on the result of summit talks between US President Barack Obama and Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on a number of issues, including a US-led Pacific Free Trade Initiative. The statement will also likely reaffirm their mutual cooperation based on a 2+2 meeting of the nation's foreign and defense ministers on Monday, in which they're expected to finalize the first revision of the guidelines on US-Japan defense cooperation. Korea's Samsung Electronics will announce its first quarter business performance results on this Wednesday. The company had surprised many with a higher than expected profits estimate of $5.4 billion earlier this month. Samsung forecasts it will post around $2.3 billion of operating profits in its IT mobile sector, along with a strong performance in its semiconductor sector as well. Its domestic rival, LG Electronics, is also scheduled to publish its performance results on the same day. Industry watchers say LG may post a similar result to the previous quarter at around $260 million, bolstered by its home entertainment business. Now, a growing number of Koreans are choosing to shop on non-Korea-based websites as they search for a bargain. For a look at who's shelling out the most online and what they're buying, Won Ji-hyun reports.
Koreans are no strangers to online shopping, especially when it comes to a deal. And now, more shoppers are using foreign websites to save money on overseas products. According to the Korea Customs Service, more than 1 million Koreans have a customs ID, which is required for making out-of-country purchases. That means about 2 out of 100 Koreans are doing their shopping on overseas websites. The data showed that women account for nearly 60% of all registered shoppers, and the majority are in their 30s. It comes as no surprise as a lot of young mothers have been using the system to get exclusive deals on baby products that are too expensive or hard to find locally. But the most popular items turned out to be health products like vitamins, followed by food, clothing, and cosmetics. The data also showed that most people spend around $100 to $300 per transaction. The agency explains that overseas direct purchases became more popular since last June when the government simplified its customs process, which also made delivery time much faster. It added that registrations for customs ID surged during big holiday sales like Black Friday. By country, the most popular websites for Korean shoppers were based in the United States, followed by Germany and China. Won Ji-hyun, Arirang News.
Department stores in Korea are getting ready for an influx of Chinese tourists who are expected to visit the country when China celebrates International Workers' Day from April 30th through May 4th. The country's largest department store, Lotte, says it will begin accepting payments from Alipay, which is China's largest payment system, from this Monday. The move will make it possible for Chinese tourists to use mobile apps for their transactions by placing their smartphone on a barcode scanner. Hyundai department store is focusing on its VIP customers. It's offering a welcome back program which offers special privileges to customers based on purchases made during previous visits. Single-person households could be the norm in Seoul in the not-too-distant future. A new report on family structures by the Seoul city government shows that single-person households are the second most common type of household at 27%, followed by couples at 13.5% and single-parent households at 10.5%. Now, the lion's share of households, or 33.6%, is still comprised of two parents and their children living under one roof. But the report predicts that traditional households like that are on the way out, to a degree at least. This group was almost half of all households in the year 2000, but they are expected to decline to just over 25% by 2030. In contrast, the number of single-person households is expected to take the top spot at over 30% by 2030 from 16% in the year 2000. Now, in some health news, liver cancer is the second most deadliest cancer here in Korea and the 10th most common cancer in the world. But there are actually very few treatment options besides surgery. But now, a new study by a group of Korean researchers has opened the door to a possible new treatment method. Our Park Geun-hye has the details.
Doctors call it the silent organ. That's because the liver can be damaged for a long time without displaying any symptoms of harm. In fact, patients with liver cancer often exhibit few or no signs of the disease until later stages when it's too late for treatment. The most effective treatment for liver cancer is surgery or transplant. However, only a small number of patients in the early stages of the disease qualify for these approaches. Other treatments include chemotherapy and radiation, but these don't represent a cure. But now, a group of Korean researchers may be able to get to a cure for the hard-to-treat cancer. Inside the liver, there are genes that stop tumors from forming. Without these tumor suppressor genes, cancer cells quickly multiply. Through animal testing, the team discovered that a type of ribonucleic acid, or RNA, causes tumor suppressor genes to disappear. The scientists say this will make it possible for them to develop a medication that controls the RNA and puts a stop to cancer growth without any side effects.
It involves recovering the function of the powerful tumor suppressor gene HDAC6. I feel there is great significance to proposing this new paradigm for liver cancer treatment.
The study was published in the Journal of Hepatology, which is the official journal of the European Association for the Study of the Liver. The Korean scientists plan to carry out further studies of liver cancer on the molecular level and eventually present other targeted treatment options. Park Geun-hye, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broome. Have a great start to the week, and thanks as always for watching, and we do hope to see you at the same time tomorrow. Goodbye.